Dr. Singer, I know you've been engaged in the study of cult-related issues, especially the psychological issues, and you've talked with the relatives of over thousands of cult members?
Thousands. I've talked with, I stopped counting when I got to 5,000 former cult members and their families. So that.
And you talked with
yeah. And I began talking with cult members who had left cults and their families back in the very early 1960s. And so that for 40 years, I've been working with people that have been captured by cults.
So according to your experience, what strikes you most when you are talking with them?
With the parents,
with the relatives, and
with relatives
ex-members?
and ex-members of U.S. people who've gotten into cults. The parents are so shocked that someone has been able to take a son or a daughter away from them, get them so that they don't connect with them anymore, and they talk in jargon. That's the usual sort of thing. And the parents are bereft. They are saddened that their young man, and sometimes it's not young people, but sometimes people's husbands and wives get seduced and tricked into joining cults. And see, part of the work I've done all along is to try to show people here in the United States that cults don't go out and recruit openly. Most cult recruiting is very deceptive, in which you don't know when you join brand A cult that it's a cult. You think it's this new international living group.
Seemingly it's not that.
It doesn't seem like what it ends up being. So that for 40 years I've been pointing out that I've learned that the recruiting into cults tends to be deceptive. Once you get into the cult, they have developed more organized and I think destructive thought reform programs. So just a few years back I started getting calls, and to date I've been called by 75 mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters of people who have gotten into Falun Gong. And I have read all the literature I've been able to find of translations of Li Hongzhi's stuff. And I haven't talked with anyone that's left the cult. But the parents, what they describe to me is, first of all, their shock that someone from a Chinese family would break away from hundreds and hundreds of years of family affiliation to go so against the grain of their cultural background. And then the second thing that these mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters have told me, only 3 of these 75 families said when I asked them, is your brother, your father, whoever, Chinese or Caucasian? Only 3 of them were Caucasians. 72 of the 75 were Chinese. And the brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers told me the first concern was that the son or daughter had just disappeared, didn't talk to them when they called on the phone, didn't come home to visit, and was really estranged and pushing them off, which was so against Chinese tradition. And from my readings and from what these people have told me, Li Hongzhi just took the little exercises, Tai Chi exercises and the breathing, and used those as sort of a front piece to lure people in. And then he takes them down the garden path, as we put it, to believing everything he tells them and that they cannot differ from it. And these, I don't know how many months ago it was that families started calling me because they've seen me on television in the San Francisco area a lot talking about cults and about mind control, brainwashing, various kinds of scams and trickeries, because that's the area I've been studying all of these years, how people influence and trick one another. And so Chinese families got very concerned, and up till now, 75 different families, because I say to them, have you called me before? And they'll say, no, this is our first call. And it will be mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, who are telling me that one member of their family has been recruited into Falun Gong. And they're either on the West Coast, very near San Francisco, because we have a very large Chinese popular community there. And then some of them have been calling from up in the Boston area because they got my phone number from relatives in San Francisco that had seen me on the TV talking about how to help people get out of cults and so on. And what the parents and brothers and sisters of the Falun Gong members are concerned about is, first, they're saying it's so against thousands of years of Chinese tradition to drop your family, to just dump your family. And once they get with Falun Gong, they're gone. The young adult or person of any age just abandons the family because the Falun Gong people replace their real family. Then, secondly, these family members say, our brother, our sister doesn't talk with us anymore. He lectures at us. He has canned, rehearsed, memorized speeches of Li Hongzhi that he just recites at us. If we visit him or if we call him on the phone, he just recites. And they say, we can't communicate with our family member. He just lectures at us. Then the third thing that they are very worried about is that Li Hongzhi tells his followers to stop taking medicine. And some of these family members have said that their brother or sister has some very chronic disease like diabetes where he should be taking his insulin, or other diseases where they should be taking their medicine. And they're very afraid that their relative will just get sick and die because they've read, and they get on the internet and see how many people have died in China that have been followers of Li Hongzhi. And then they're very concerned because these relatives say, I want to go to China and be with the Falun Gong people in China. And then their parents and brothers and sisters say to me, we're very afraid that they'll go and they'll do stuff that's so illegal in China, and they'll get put in jail or shot or who knows what. And they want to know how to, get their relatives out. And I talk with them a lot about how to lure them back out again and so on. But we just don't have enough people. There are not too many of us that read all the stuff that's been translated into English that Li Hongzhi has said.
According to your experience, what kind of harms have been done to these members?
They've been separated from their family. They've been told not to take their medicine. And they used to be, like you and I, regular people who rationally thought about stuff. Once they get with Falun Gong, their families say they don't rationally reason anymore. They just recite learned phrases. They have lost their ability to be independent reasoners. And then some of these people, the relatives say, have lost their job skills because they put so much time in with their Falun Gong friends.
Do you think Falun Gong as a cult or religion in America would develop in the way that they are proceeding now?
I think that Falun Gong surely meets the criteria of being a cult by American or world standards. the leader has people, instead of, worshiping God or abstract principles, they worship him. They believe he is the all-powerful person. And they've dropped centuries of religion in China to follow this man, so that he is a self-appointed person who says, as cult leaders do all around the world, follow me. I know the one way. Follow me. Give up everything. Come with me. Then he gets such control over them that they stop thinking for themselves. No matter how huge it is, China is a huge country compared to, say, here in the U.S. or compared to little European countries. In any country, you want citizens who think, citizens who reason, citizens who learn what the technical skills are for survival in a modern world, so that these people who have joined Falun Gong, their families are so concerned. And the families are afraid. I say to them, oh, would you give me your name and number so I can put you in touch with journalists, because it would be so helpful for Chinese, Caucasian, any kind of people here in the U.S. to get a true picture of who Li Hongzhi is, how his group operates, the propaganda that they put out. They say, oh, we can think for ourselves. It's just the stuff that every cult leader here in the U.S. tells his followers to believe. And it's started by the self-appointed leader. He has total jurisdiction and control over their behavior, their conduct, their thinking.
Right. Why generally the American people are more concerned about the treatment of Falun Gong by the Chinese government rather than the harm and the influences of these thinking on the people, normal people?
I think that the American public has not read the material that a few of us have, that's in the international press, that you get off of the web, and find what do the Chinese people know about Falun Gong, what happens to Falun Gong followers. And see, here in the U.S., people get, as we say, real turned on about religious freedom. And I just have not seen that Falun Gong is a religious freedom issue. I think this was a guy who was very clever, very bright, very manipulative, and he set himself up to sell enough tapes and books and writings, and he got himself over here to the U.S., where he's away from the Chinese government and from people that he's manipulating over there. He's living up here in New York somewhere. And that looks very suspicious. But you see, I think the average reader here in the United States of the newspapers or the watchers of TV think that it is religious persecution. And I've read, and I've been on programs a year ago with 2 Chinese scholars who live here in the U.S., who read it in Chinese and English both, what the Falun Gong people are putting out. And they read the Chinese press and the translations. I don't see it as a religious freedom issue at all. But you see, as long as the American public doesn't understand the real details of Falun Gong, they will think that it's as if here in the United States someone was picking on a regular Buddhist church in downtown Oakland or a regular Catholic church in San Francisco. And from what I read, that is not the situation. And I try to explain to people, they think I must be out of my mind. I say, no. I've been studying how people self-appoint, trick people into joining them, and then giving them money and promoting wealth and power. If you're going to start a cult, that's what you want to get. wealth and power.
Right.
And I said, I've studied at this point 5,000 different cults.
Are you optimistic that the cults will be controlled and will be supervised in the coming 21st century?
I just don't know. I think the Chinese government has to get a lot better public relations over here. Real good stuff into our press and TV so that it makes Falun Gong visible as it really is. One more of the thousands of cults in the world.